The Thetford Hoard, also known as the Thetford Treasure, is a hoard of Romano-British metalwork discovered by Arthur and Greta Brooks at Gallows Hill, near Thetford in Norfolk, England, in November 1979 and now in the British Museum. Dating from the mid to late 4th century before Christ, the hoard is a collection of 33 silver spoons and 3 silver strainers, 22 gold rings, for gold bracelets, for necklace pendants, 5 gold chain necklaces and 2 pairs of necklace clasps, a gold amulet designed as a pendant, an unmounted engraved gemstone, for beads, 1 emerald and 3 glass, and a gold belt buckle decorated with a dancing satyr. The hoard also includes a small cylindrical box with a lid made of slate. The find was made under very unfortunate circumstances. The prospector used a metal detector without the knowledge or permission of the owners of the site, which had recently been cleared for development, and made his discovery late on a November day in poor light. He recovered the material in great haste, probably overlooking some small objects, and knowing that he had no legal right to search in the area, he did not report his discovery to the authorities, as the law requires. Instead, he unwisely attempted to sell the items he had found to private buyers. By the time archaeologists learned of the find several months later, the site had been built over, making proper archaeological investigation impossible. It was not even possible to question the discoverer about the circumstances, as by the time the material arrived at the British Museum for examination he was terminally ill and died about a month later, in July 1980. Persistent rumors that the hoard originally included coins have never been confirmed or conclusively refuted, but even if there were no coins, it is very likely that the group as we now see it is incomplete. A full account of the circumstances of the discovery is included in the standard catalogue. This lack of information makes it particularly difficult to speculate about the nature of the hoard and the purpose of its ancient concealment. The silver service in the hoard consists of 3 colanders and 33 spoons of 2 types. 17 of the spoons are carcliaria, with long pointed handles, and the remaining 16 are the larger liguli or signi, with bowls about the size of a modern dessert spoon and short, curled handles ending in bird heads. Many of the spoons bear pagan inscriptions of Faunus, a minor Roman god who had many characteristics in common with the Greek Pan. There is no overtly Christian symbolism in the hoard, although one spoon is decorated with a figure of a fish, which can often be an indirect reference to Christianity. Bacchic iconography is evident in the group and was traditional in Roman culture, but in the late Roman period many Bacchic motifs were adopted and given new interpretations by Christians. However, at this date, the end of the 4th century before Christ, there was no obstacle to placing unambiguously Christian symbols and inscriptions on personal effects, so their absence here is striking. The overtly and probably exclusively pagan iconography remains one of the most interesting and unusual aspects of the collection. Inscriptions such as Dea Favniavsisi, literally to the god Faun Orsicus, are engraved on the bowls of both the carcliaria and the signs. The epithets or nicknames used for Faun in the inscriptions have been identified as containing Celtic, Gaelic or British linguistic elements, supporting the suggestion that any cult of Faun they represent was Romano-British, rather than one that consisted of worshippers from elsewhere in the Roman Empire. The inscriptions were discussed in the published catalogue by the late Kenneth Jackson. It has been suggested that these objects are unlikely to have been used for ordinary domestic dining, and that their eventual deposition can be interpreted as a ritual act rather than a practical one. However, as both pagan and Christian inscriptions are regularly found on Roman jewelry and domestic tableware, and as the actual motivation for the concealment of the material itself from Thetford is unknown, this view is open to debate. The unusual composition of the group of gold objects is actually little better evidence of a non-domestic origin than the decoration and inscriptions of the silver assemblage. The suspicion that the hoard is incomplete undermines any detailed analysis of these matters, but if the gold and silver objects were somehow connected with pagan cult practices, which is certainly possible, then the anti-pagan Theodosian edicts of the 390s would provide good practical, rather than ritual, reasons for concealing the material from the authorities. The gold belt buckle is an unusual find and would have been worn by a man. We know that belts, decorated in various forms, were important symbols of office or status in late Roman times, although few elements of them survive. Its decoration of a satyr wearing a pedum, a shepherd's scythe, and a bunch of grapes is consistent with other allusions to Bacchic imagery throughout the assemblage, both in jewelry and in service. For example, the running feline on a spoon, cochlear, initially identified as a panther or leopard and referred to as a panther spoon, is certainly a reference to Bacchus, who was regularly accompanied by a panther or leopard, Panthera pardus, or a tiger, Panthera tigris. In fact, the animal on the Thetford spoon is probably a tiger, the representation of stripes as very short curved lines, easily confused with spots, being common in Roman art. Gold rings could be worn by both men and women, although bracelets and pendant necklaces were predominantly women's jewelry at the time. Many of the rings show intricate filigree work typical of late Roman taste, and a few are of highly unusual design. The small horned, bowl-like head that frames the ring, item 23, seems incomparable and may have been intended as a reference to Faunus, while the design of item 7, two birds flanking a vase, is both a standard Bacchic image eventually adopted into Christian iconography and probably something more specific in this case. The birds, although on a very small scale, appear to be woodpeckers, and picus, the Latin name for birds of this species, is also the name of Faunus' father in some sources. Much of the jewelry will have been designed and chosen for its talismanic, religious, or personal significance. A gold amulet pendant intended to be worn around the neck, and with parallels including one from York, was filled with sulfur, probably for its apotropaic qualities. One ring is set with an engraved brown chalcedony gemstone measuring 13 by 9.5 mm. It depicts a snake-legged, rooster-headed deity known as Anguipede, holding a shield which is inscribed in Greek Anguipede or Hyeo, a magical word often associated with this deity. Although set in a closed setting, this gemstone is also inscribed on its reverse with the Greek abracavak, which translates as Abrasax Sabaoth, also a word for power and a related name of the deity. Interestingly, a talisman with a Greek inscription appears in a hoard primarily associated with an Italian, Latin, minor deity, Faun, although many other Greek inscriptions are known from Roman Britain, and other examples of late antique magical gems have also been found in Latin-speaking provinces. A matching pair of bracelets, items 24 and 25, which at the time of discovery and publication could only be paralleled with similar bracelets from the Lyons jewelry hoard of 1841, which is of slightly earlier date, are now paralleled with a set of 4 matching bracelets from the Hoxne hoard, discovered in 1992, which appears to date close to that of the Thetford find. It has been suggested that all the items may have been commissioned by a group of intellectuals who fervently believed in the old values and who buried the items when the serious persecution of non-Christians began in the 390s. Most of the gold objects appear fresh, apparently unworn. Roman gold, which is of high purity, in this case with an average gold content of over 94%, it is soft and quickly shows signs of use. This pristine condition is one of the unusual features of the Thetford jewelry collection. Most of the rings have common features of design and workmanship which suggest that they may be the products of a single workshop, while the construction of the matching pair of bracelets is also parallel in the form of two of the rings, items 10 and 12. It would be somewhat surprising for a single owner, or even a family, to have possessed such a relatively large number of rings which appear to have been acquired from a single source at the same time. The Thetford Hoard, despite the woefully inadequate details of its discovery and provenance, remains one of the most intriguing and unusual of the many late Roman bullion hoards from Britain. Although the combination of silver tableware and gold personal ornaments, with or without coins, is common enough in bullion hoards from this period from Britain. The fact that the inscriptions, supported by the visual images, suggest a pagan rather than a Christian faith towards the end of the 4th century is significant. Attempts have been made to interpret the hoard as Christian, but it remains somewhat unconvincing when applied to objects current at a period when paganism, rather than Christianity, was out of favor. The hoard is now in the British Museum. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the Golden Treasure channel. Stay tuned for new updates and give the video a thumbs up in support.